Hi. Okay, so I'm the last person, so I will be sure to make this super long and super boring. Because none of you are ready to go home. No, not at all. Okay, again, I'm Shania Williams with the Richland County Stormwater Management Division. I am the Education Program Coordinator. I am responsible for conducting all of the outreach and public involvement programs as dictated by a permit that I will mention in a few minutes. Okay, so Stormwater 101. What is stormwater? Any guesses?
Water that comes from rain.
Right, water. It's rain, water that comes from a storm. And that can be in the form of rain, snow, sleet, snow melt, just precipitation, basically. So when it rains, rain hits the ground, and if it's pavement that's an impervious surface, the water is unable to soak into the ground. If there's grass or any other sort of vegetation, water is able to soak in the ground. So on those impervious surfaces, water hits the ground and it just runs off. We call that stormwater runoff. So anything that is on the ground, when it rains, gets carried away. And when it's okay. And when it gets carried away, it's usually to a drainage point like a storm drain. Now, a lot of people think that water that goes down storm drains is treated, but guess what? It's not. And it goes to a completely different place than the water from your homes. So in this illustration, you can see this is a very rough, super simplified illustration. So the water from your homes goes to a wastewater treatment plant where it is then treated and then discharged into a nearby waterway. Whereas water that goes through a storm drain, stormwater runoff, directly discharges to the nearest waterway. So whatever we put on the ground is directly impacting our local waterways. Good point to remember. So stormwater is surface water because it goes to the surface water or surface water body. Now the Clean Act calls for the preservation of our physical, chemical, and biological integrity of our nation's waters. With that comes the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, and that was designed to prevent polluted water from being directly discharged into our waterways. Underneath that is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, or MS4, which is a permit that aims to minimize the amount of non-point source pollution. Now, I mentioned the MS4 permit because that is a permit that Richland County holds and has to adhere to, as it is administered by DHEC. And it is why my division exists. We exist to make sure that Richland County is meeting all of the permit requirements, which there are many. So Richland County Stormwater Management Division is within the Department of Public Works. We're there along with engineering that helps design all of the streets and roads. Also our roads and drainage division, who are responsible for maintaining the roads and who are working diligently. We were all working very diligently during the flood to make sure that the people who were trapped at home had their roads cleared. And also our new development division, which goes through or works with the development services to have residential and commercial properties built. So our mission is to meet the requirements of the NPDES MS4 Phase 1 permit and provide stormwater management support to the citizens of Richland County in order to improve public safety, enhance public health, and increase public service through departmental coordination and public awareness. Because that's super clear. Right? And to think we just rewrote that. So stormwater management involves looking at not only stormwater quality, but also stormwater quantity, because both of those things need to be controlled. Okay. So with stormwater quality, that's one of our monitoring devices. I'll talk about it in a second. So I mentioned that the MS4 permit wants to prevent or reduce the amount of non-point source pollution in an area. So who wants to guess what point source pollution is? Or non-point source?
Where it starts, points, where it starts.
Point, yes. So what specifically about point source?
You know
Knowing where.
Yes, you can point to the source. Yeah.
Wastewater effluent.
Right, that could be like the end of a pipe, could be a good example of a point source. Okay. So point source comes from a single specific location that you can point to the source, whereas non-point source, we basically consider that as coming from everywhere. And I'll get into a couple of the different pollutants in a second. So here we are, stormwater pollutants. These are 4 of the biggest pollutants. There's also dissolved, that's not really a pollutant though. Nutrients, which can come from different fertilizers or animal waste, pesticides. That's a big pollutant, and those can cause excessive aquatic plant growth. So you can get an algal bloom that can reduce the amount of dissolved oxygen in a water body, and that can lead to fish kills or just other aquatic organisms dying off, like what might be happening in the 25 Mile Creek watershed. E. coli is another big one, because that creates a public health hazard. And let me tell you, some of the biggest sources of E. coli, animal waste. So pet waste, geese waste, also septic sewer, leaking septic tanks, and sanitary sewer overflows are causes or sources of E. coli. I have to say this. How many of you have dogs? How many of you pick up after your dogs after they use the bathroom? Oh, so remember when I said anything that, thank you. And thank you to those who do. You get kudos. So remember when I said that anything that's on the ground, when it rains, it goes into a nearby waterway? That includes pet waste. So dog waste has 3 times more bacteria in it than human waste. So think about that in terms of where our waste goes and where your dog's waste goes. It does not just break down and disintegrate. It still eventually gets into a waterway. And geese are even worse.
The water that goes into drains from from roads and things like that, are they supposed to be able to hold a certain amount of water or they overflow? I remember one time when years ago, traveling on Garner's Ferry, taking a left on Leesburg, that whole system there was just completely flooded out. I didn't know, are they built to withstand a certain amount of pressure from water, a certain amount of water going through them? Do they overflow like that?
So technically they should not overflow. One of the reasons that they do overflow is because they get clogged. Because people put things down them, yard debris gets left in the streets, and again, anything that's on the ground when it rains, it's going to wash into the storm drain. So if there's any solid debris on the ground, it can clog the storm drain so the water is unable to flow, and that's what would cause the flooding. Flooding. Or just water just not to drain. But the water it is designed to flow and to prevent the water from staying in one spot, getting it away. Okay, sediment. So Chanda already mentioned sediment, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But yes, it is another stormwater pollutant. It causes turbidity, which can affect the amount of dissolved oxygen in water. Also, just cloudy water is unsightly. It can also, the particles can allow heavy metals to absorb to the different particulate matter. It comes from road sands, tilled areas, construction sites is where we typically see them, or yards that have a lot of bare soil. Also, ponds that don't have a shoreline buffer or have a lot of geese that destroy the shoreline can also be a source of erosion. So fats, oils, and grease, when people pour fats, oils, and grease down a kitchen sink, the grease cools, it congeals, and it can cause the pipe to burst. While yes, that is the different piping system. That's the one that comes from your domestic homes or from your homes. When those pipes burst, that causes a sanitary sewer overflow. So all of that sewage that comes from your homes can come above ground, and again, when it rains, it flows into the nearest waterway. So just remember, do not pour your grease down your drains. Let it cool, wipe it up, and then throw it away. How do we address water quality? So we do a lot of different things in our division. We have water quality monitoring stations set up throughout unincorporated Richland County, and we called it ambient, but now we have to change it. In-stream water quality samples, which means that our water quality guys go out and do this handy dandy little method that James is doing to take a sample of water to see what pollutant levels are in it just on an average day. We also take samples that are called wet weather samples, and that big circular machine that I showed you, or that you saw earlier, is an example of one of the wet weather samplers. So when it rains, the sampler collects the first inch of water, which is called the first flush, and that first flush contains most of the pollution that was on the ground that had been accumulating. So when we get that water sample, we have an idea of what accumulates over time and is being washed into our waterways during that first flush, during that first inch of a rain event. Again, public education is one of the things we do. That's why I'm here. We also have a lot of different programs, public education programs, where we try to get the communities involved. I can talk about them if you want to ask me specific questions, but I don't want to go too long. We also do inspections of different types of facilities in an attempt to really focus on pollution prevention. So we inspect industrial facilities, facilities with pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, like golf courses, pest control companies, lawn care companies, to ensure that they are covering their materials properly and applying their materials properly. We also inspect roadway runoff to look at, again, those first flush pollutants, and also construction site runoff to monitor how much sediment is coming off the construction site, and to ensure that the sediment fences and other structural best management practices are in place as they should be. We also rely a lot on you all. So like the comments you all just made to me about how your water smells funny, or there's something that you saw in a river, things like that are great to report to our ombudsman's office. Because there are only 8 of us in our office, but there are many, many, many of you. And you can kind of be our eyes and ears on the ground and call in to us and let us know what you see in your areas that we can go out and investigate. Okay, so Adopt a Stream, I guess this falls under our illicit discharge detection and elimination program that I forgot to mention, and also public education. Adopt a Stream is a new program that we are bringing to the Midlands. Well, it's new to the Midlands. It's not new to the world. And it is a citizen science volunteer monitoring program. So this is one of those times when we're really encouraging citizens to be involved in their community and keep an eye out on what's happening in their areas. You go out, or as a volunteer, you get trained, and you go out and take various water quality monitoring tests, and you enter your data into a database, and we get to see whether or not there are hotspots, water quality hotspots, that we need to go and check out and investigate further. And that ties into the illicit discharge detection and elimination, because illicit discharges are really anything going into a natural waterway other than rain. Okay, water quantity. Go next. All right. So there's structural best management practices that help us manage the volume and flow of water. Ultimately, when we're talking about managing stormwater quantity, we want to slow the water down and spread it out so the ground can soak it up. You can't do that if there is a lot of impervious surface. And so a lot of the BMPs that we're encouraging increase the amount of pervious surface, a lot of soil that can soak up the water. All right, so one way that there can be water soaked up, but without there being soil, is with pervious concrete. And the picture on the left was actually taken at the Decker Center that Jamal was mentioning. This is part of the pervious concrete that they're putting in. It does not look very special. But if you've ever seen a video of pervious concrete, it is super cool. It's really cool. We have a tour of this center coming up, and I'm really looking forward to it. Another type of structural BMP that you see a lot of is a rain garden. So you see these on commercial sites and in homes. And this allows you to capture the water and treat it. Really just capture the water. It holds the water and allows the water to infiltrate. And it has drought tolerant and wet tolerant plants in it. All right, so we address water quantity by inspecting a lot of these BMPs, including the ponds. So we inspect retention and detention. Detention are dry ponds, as shown in this picture, and retention ponds, which are the wet ponds that you see quite often, more often on commercial sites than you would detention ponds. So yes, those ponds do have to be built to specifications, and they are inspected to ensure they are maintained properly and functioning properly. If it is a pond that the county inspects and it is not up to par, then the pond owner will receive a notification saying, hey, your pond has been inspected, this is what we found, this is what you need to do, you have 30 days to do it, or else we will send you a bill for $1092.50. These are a couple of other things that we do, are capital improvement projects that address water quality and quantity, again, public education, and again, citizen reports. Lastly, April is Storm Drain Marking Month / Stormwater Awareness Month. So, and as such, I am pushing storm drain marking. There is some person in here from Elevations. Yes, I have a neighborhood for you. So see me afterwards. We're looking for volunteers to mark drains in their neighborhood. And again, storm drains lead to our waterways. We all love and value our waterways. So this is a way to provide a visual reminder that there should be no dumping down a storm drain, and that the drains lead to streams. We marked drains in my neighborhood for the kickoff, and I have to say, every time I drive through, there's this sense of pride that wells up in me. Like, I did that. And a lot of people walk in my neighborhood, so it just feels really good to know that, oh, I'm helping educate all of these people. I mean, I educate people every day, but it's like this is on a very localized, like personal level. So I encourage everyone else to do the same. You can visit myriverstartshere.org or check out your bumper sticker or ask me if you have any questions. And you can mark in the city and the county. It gives you an option for that. Yep. Yes, I'm done. Thank you.